Hey guys, it's Landon Blake with Redefined Horizons, and this is the third video in a little series of videos on how to use Trello to set up a workflow or a pipeline. And in this series of videos, I've been showing you how to set up a workflow for project management on site development projects. So these are smaller surveys, usually of a single parcel or maybe a couple of parcels where you're going to do a boundary and a topo for some kind of site development. So usually you're taking some vacant land or some land in an older part of town and it's going to be developed or redeveloped. So in the last video, I showed you how to create a project template card, put some basic information in the description, and then we added a couple checklists. So what I've done now is I've gone in and added the checklist for each phase. And so in this video, I'd like to just walk you through each of those checklists. That'll teach you a little bit about some of my process for managing these type of surveys. So the first checklist we added was a project kickoff meeting. Want to make sure that we review the scope of services with the team, that we go over the project budget and the target man hours for each of their assigned tasks, discuss any challenges we have on this project, make sure that we cover safety topics for the field work that's going to be done, provide the team with instructions on how to charge their time to the job, and then we're going to update our project notes and survey report. And this is usually where I start my survey report, sometime right after the kickoff meeting. The next thing we're going to do is our research. Now, I only have one list for research, but I went ahead and split it into two checklists, one for boundary research, one for topo. Usually that's being done by a different survey tech in my office. Those aren't always the same person, so I went ahead and split that up. So for the boundary research, we want to make sure that we pulled the tax assessor maps for the subject parcel and the adjoiners. We've pulled the survey maps in the area. We've identified any special boundary research that we may need. We've obtained and reviewed the preliminary title report, if we're going to have one on the project. We've got copies of the easements listed in the title report. We've obtained and reviewed the vesting deed for the subject parcel. We've obtained and reviewed the adjoiner deeds. I got a little misspelling there, don't I? We've gotten copies of the documents that are referenced in those deeds. And then we're going to update our project notes and our survey report. Research for the topo will be to identify utility service providers, prepare utility as-built plan request exhibit and a letter. That's so we can get our utility as-builts. Obtain copies of as-builts for on-site structures or major site features if those are available. Then we're going to update the project notes and survey report about the topo research we did. Next thing we'll do is prepare for the field work. So we want to complete a road safety review for the field work. What kind of work is being done in the road? What type of roads are we dealing with? What's the appropriate traffic control measures? Make sure that we've coordinated access to the site for the field crew. Then as part of my field package, which is what I send out with the crews, I'm going to make sure that we have a topo survey plan, a boundary survey plan. Those are usually 11 by 17 exhibits with some kind of aerial background. We've got search points for the monuments if appropriate. The crew needs to go out with copies of the survey maps. They know what they're looking for. Copies of any as-builts we have for the topo. We're going to meet with the field crew to review the assigned field work if we didn't already do that in the project kickoff. We'll schedule the field work with the field coordinator or the chief of parties. And we're going to update our notes and our report. Then we're going to execute the field survey. Not a whole lot for me to do there. I do try and get out for a visit on each site if possible. I like to put my boots in the ground. I get to do that on every job, but I try. And then update the notes and report with any information from that visit or any information on the field surveys. The field crews come back. They've got a bunch of data that needs to be managed. So we're going to download our data collector files, download the field notes, download the site photos and videos, review the field notes, review the site photos, create a working TBC project, Trimble Business Center project. That's what we do in my office. Review the raw data in Trimble Business Center. Export and clean our points files. Export and clean our line work, automated line work. And then we'll update our notes and survey report. Okay. Now I'll just stop here and point out that any one of these phases may have its own separate workflow. Okay, so for example, review raw data in TBC. You may have a separate Trello board with its own, maybe you got a 5-step process or 10-step process for raw data in TBC. So this is kind of the high-level project management that we're doing here. As you drill into some of these tasks, there may be a separate workflow for these individual tasks. Okay, after the raw data is taken care of, we're going to do our mapping. So for the topo, we'll create our 2D drawing and our 3D drawing, import our points, check the placement of our blocks, which should be automated, clean up any of our automated line work, clean up our 3D break lines. We're going to create a surface model. We'll create and label our contours, clean up our spot elevations, which in our process is automated creation of those spots. We'll add the hatching we need. We'll add feature labels or grade labels, make sure that we drop our legend in and tailor it to the topo. Prepare sheets if needed. We don't always do that, but we still have some clients that like PDF sheets of their topo. Then we'll update the notes and survey report. For the boundary mapping, we're going to evaluate the evidence that they found in the field. We'll resolve our boundary, prepare our boundary mapping, map the easements if we were asked to do that, update our notes in our survey report. And I will point out that typically for my boundaries, I have a separate survey report usually for my boundary. Okay, so I usually separate that out from the survey report that's for the rest of the project, but that's a personal preference of mine. After the mapping's done, we want to prepare our deliverables. So we're going to perform our drawing check and cleanup of our drawings, and I have a process. It's about 6 or 7 steps that we do for each of the drawings. We'll produce any final PDF documents if we're going to deliver PDFs. A lot of our clients still want the point file, so we want to make sure that we've cleaned those up and finalized them. And then occasionally we will also send photos to the client for their use, especially if they're working remotely and haven't had a chance to actually be on the site. So we need to clean and rename and organize those photos. And then we're going to do our final QA/QC. And I should mention, you should be doing QA/QC through this process. But at the end of the project, before you deliver, we're going to do our final check. So we're going to make sure the topo got a peer review, make sure the boundary mapping got a peer review. Those each have a process. We'll perform what I call a file audit. That makes sure that the files are named correctly, that they're in the right they're in the right place in the project folder, that all the paper documents for the project have been scanned, that we have a digital copy. There's a process for this. And then we'll perform a final review of the scope. Did we meet our obligations under the scope? Is there anything we forgot? Okay, then I have a project closeout process I like to use. Send the deliverables to the client, wrap up that survey report. Then I like to evaluate my field crew. How did they do? They get graded. I'm going to complete the topo mapping evaluation. How did we do on the mapping for the topo? How did we do on the mapping for the boundary? Those are simple evaluations. Then I like to do a short little one-page evaluation of my client. How did the client treat us on this project? Were they good to work with? Were they a hassle? We'll prepare the final bill. We'll prepare and send a project closeout letter. That's a short one-page letter, usually goes with the final bill. Says, good to work with you. We're wrapping up our project. If you think anything else is needed, let us know. We'll review the performance on the budget. What were the budgeted hours versus the actual hours? Where do we have room to improve there? And then I like to write a list of lessons learned. I've been doing this a long time, and it seems like there's lessons to learn on each project. So that's my project closeout. So those are all the tasks. So I've got a couple minutes here. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to use this template we've got now to move projects through this pipeline. So when you want to start a new project, come in here, you click on your project template card, and you're just going to hit the copy button. And you're going to come down here and tell it, move that to the project kickoff list and create the card. Okay. So now if we scroll over, we've got a new card here for this project, and we can go ahead and rename it. So I like to give it the use a title that has the name and the job number and the name. Okay. Then we'll go in and we can add this information here. So the job number, job name, and I'd fill out the rest of this information. Okay. And then after we have the so let's say we've gone in now, we've had our project kickoff meeting, so we've done all these things. Okay, so this is 100% green, tells me that's done. And then I'm just going to drag it over to the next phase, which would be research, and we'd start ticking off these items. Okay. couple other nice things about Trello. You can attach documents if you want. Attach a copy of your scope or your fee if you wanted to do that. You could set a due date. So this project needs to be wrapped up by Friday the 9th. You can assign this to different members of your Trello team if you want to do that. So you could assign your office staff to that. Okay, and then you can always, I like to add comments down here. So say, and I always like to put in the date. So the January 30th today, and I could say project kickoff meeting held in Manteca office with Vanessa, Blake, and Bob Jones. Okay, hit save. Now there's a comment there. So anybody can come into this project now, see where we're at in the process. They also can review any activity that's happened on the job. Okay, and you can go in and edit and delete those comments as well. Okay, so you could potentially, depending on your practice, you could have 3, 4, 5, a dozen different jobs in different phases in this process. So this is a really great way to keep track of everything. Helps you enforce a workflow, make sure that you're not forgetting things, and it's a good high-level project management tool. Okay, that went a little longer than I wanted, but hopefully it was helpful for you guys. You understand now how you can use Trello to set up a workflow or a pipeline, and you can use that as part of your project management and also part of your quality control on your projects. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Appreciate it.